Hey guys, Cosmic here, and welcome back to another Borderlands 3 video. Today we're going to be talking about a new Ties That Bind Amara build. So from everything from Sinti to Derchlands, you've probably seen some variations of this on stream. I was working on this with One Pump, Chump, and Masterwork Crossbow in the latest video. So this is going to be something like you've seen before, but has a few different takes on it, and I do want to thank Derchland for this latest breakthrough with Dueling Monocle. Yes, believe it or not, this is going to be the key focus of this build, but things like One Pump are going to be really relevant for when you want your downtime, or also Unforgiven is another weapon you're going to be looking for. So ignore the anointment on this, it's just the only one that I had. But what makes Dueling Monocle so special? And as you're going to see here as we're running through the different things today, again, as a reminder, all these builds are going to be featuring a Proving Ground, a Circle of Slaughter, at least part of a round, and then finally a Graveward kill at the end. So one is enough. It doesn't look all that special, but this does have a huge crit modifier for it. So effectively, with Ties That Bind, you're spreading all that damage. You're going to want to grab the biggest guy in the group, get a headshot for, million damage or whatever that big number is going to be, depending on modifiers and other things, and that damage will spread to the rest and obviously kill them. So this is really a, make one shot, kill a bunch of dudes type of build. From there, you will need some kind of supporting weapon. So again, Trick Unforgiven is more of your close range, I'm in the middle of combat type of weapon to use, because with Dueling Monocle, you do need to be aiming down sights. So this is going to have limited viability. That said, Trick Unforgiven is really nice with those crits that it's going to be getting. Again, 432 critical hit damage is really nice here. And the thing to note is that, on average, if we're talking about just getting body shots and whatnot, assuming both these weapons were in their base state, One Pump and Unforgiven are pretty close in damage. Now, that said, as we get Trick Unforgiven, have more damage on it. If you think you get a plus 100% weapon damage after action skill, or you get next two mags have increased elemental damage, things of that nature, the scaling is going to take you way further with Trick Unforgiven. So really, you're going to be looking for a weapon that has Trick Unforgiven that has some kind of plus damage to it, which is really going to send it over the top. And then just lastly here, we just have a regular Auditing Crossroads. Yes, it does have an action skill here in effect, but that's not really the ones you should be looking for, like a plus 250% phase cast Amara. It's really just a filler here for some armor enemies that we might have trouble with as we're going through these different runs. And then for your different other parts of the loadout that you're going to be looking for, I personally like the improved rerouter for that extra damage that you're going to be getting. Now, again, this is only going to be effective when you have that kind of gap between you and the enemy, which, thanks to the latest patch notes or hotfixes on October 10th, we did see an increase to phase grasp, which is really kind of bringing this all together as well. So again, this is just nice to have because it gives you extra damage, making sure against those 3-bar baddies that you are getting those one shot, one kill. Should be no surprise here, but for our class mod, we are using a Phase Zerker. The thing to note here is that typically you're going to want something with high clarity just for the sustain, that is the green effect. And then for your rolls, you're going to be looking for, well, anything that has plus damage or plus damage to Jacob weapons, right? Because all our key weapons that we're trying to get that one hit with are Jacobs and are going to be doing the most damage. So that's the way to get the biggest modifiers out of it. For your grenade, I very do strongly recommend, again, something that's going to have a benefit against armor. I personally like just cryo everything because it's nice to get those random freezes in effect too. And of course, if you're lucky enough to find one that has an anointment on it, because it has action skill star regenerate one grenade, you will never run out of grenades just because of how fast you can recover them on Amara. For our last ability here, this is an interesting one. So another one I'd recommend here is Elemental Projector, because if you're running something like Circle of Slaughter, generally speaking, you're almost always going to have a plus damage modifier for you, but just for my own sake, I like using Snowdrift just for the mobility. But what's important here is at the end. So really, you're going to be looking for something like gun damage. Magazine size is nice if you're switching to Crossroads and some other guns, or just, again, thinking about crit, weapon damage, magazine size, things that are just going to benefit the kind of game plan that you're already putting together. For the build itself, with our Brawler tree, we have points into clarity. Again, this is going to be just your sustain. Personally, in the other build that I've been testing, I've been putting points into personal space, and this is really only for that extra downtime, for when you really need to get up close. You're using One Pump or Unforgiven, you're getting extra damage because it is the bullet damage that's getting boosted here, or weapon shot in this case. So you can go for a little bit more damage. This one really just comes down to personal choice, and again, sustain here being really important. For our Blue Tree or Mystic Assault, this is where things get a little bit more interesting. And why does this build do so much damage? And really, it comes down to do harm. I don't think that this is necessarily intended, but I also am unsure that Gearbox is going to find a way to patch this out. But Do Harm and Ties That Bind are interacting favorably, meaning you are getting more damage for the action that is spreading across. So it makes your one-shot kills even better and more likely to happen. Now, this is a case where I'd say I'd probably put points into this anyways, because this build really does need to have the flexibility in switching between both Ties That Bind and the phase cast skill of choice that you're going to be looking for. So in that case, regardless if Ties That Bind eventually gets quote unquote fixed here and the way it interacts with Do Harm, you probably still want this just because it's going to make your phase cast do noticeable amount of damage and also be able to one-shot some smaller mobs on occasion. Fast Hands, again, just our reload speed. And then Violent Tapestry, because we are playing a Phase Zerker build with Mystic, it's going to get extra stacks. If you want to switch to an elemental gun, it is adding the status effect chance. The thing to note here is that it is a very, small amount, all things considered. So it's one of those things you just put 1 point into and kind of forget until later. Transcendence is nice is because it gives us the critical hit damage. So, accuracy with some of the weapons that we're going to be using isn't really relevant. But again, getting as much crit damage together as we can to really make that one shot, one kill happen. Restless. This is going to be based on however many points you have in your Guardian rank. If your shield and relics have action skill cooldown, so generally speaking, most people are going to want 5 out of 5 points in this, but I've seen some other builds that once you get later on have the min-max capacity to lower this down to maybe 3 out of 5 points and still get your timers set to when you're going to be able to cast as needed. Ascendant is an interesting one. In some builds, I've actually been recommending taking this out, but in this case, it gives us stillness of mind to make sure our enemies are hovering in the air a little bit longer. So when we have that long range shot, generally, if you time it right, if they don't die off that one shot headshot, you can get another body shot in before that breaks and just kill them that way, which is really nice. Laid Bare, this is where the two skills are very important to look at in terms of how they're affecting. So this one is after damage. So again, keeping in mind that on that initial grasp, that target's not getting that damage boost. So this is where we really want to have that flexibility if we're using Ties That Bind or phase cast, So that's where Laid Bare is going to help us out. For the Wrath, though, this is just increased gun damage after you activate your action skill. So this one is a freebie that you're getting for plus 40%. Really nice to see. Remnant. This is the part of the build that I absolutely love. If you caught the streams for about the past week and a half, this is more or less the build I was trying to do. Again, I was trying to accomplish this with things like Masterwork Crossbow, which we had that nice one-shot kill on Graveward with. And then I've also been trying to use One Pump Chump as the other weapon. And ultimately, I think this is, with Dueling Monocle, just the absolute way to go with it. And then our capstone avatar, really just letting us spam our action skill pretty much as we can. And then doing some interesting things again with the bonus rush stacks, which means that our ability Do Harm is going to be doing even more damage. So moving on to our red tree, and the final tree here is going to be Steady Hands, just for handling. This is really just for Unforgiven in this case, because that recoil can be kind of nasty. Infusion, moving things over to fire. So again, this is one of those cases, especially if you're going against some nice fleshy targets, you're going to be getting an insane damage boost with Dueling Monocle, which is of course normally kinetic, but then you transfer it to fire. You have Tempest, which is going to further increase that damage, and then you're getting the 150% damage modifier for using fire on a red bar enemy. So again, very easily you can see how all these numbers are really starting to come together. Dread, again, just looking for ways that are going to increase our gun damage. So in this case, we have the ability to grasp our target, get some extra gun damage. It lasts 8 seconds. And generally speaking, this is just going to be a permanent boost that you're going to be having. So phase grasp when needed. And then lastly is Indiscriminate, which is our ricochet ability. This one's mostly just kind of fun, but because we are doing so much damage already, that ricochet can actually kill some enemies from time to time, which is super interesting. Then again, the last thing I do want to kind of mention here just at the end is we are Guardian rank 230, so we do have quite a few points into our action skill cooldown. So keep in mind that your Guardian rank does matter in this and will affect certain things in terms of gun damage, so that might increase or decrease the viability as well. With that, we have our Proving Ground up next. You can see our modifiers over here. Generally speaking, pretty neutral. We're not using shock or radiation in this case, so this is going to be about as close to a true run as we can possibly make it. And again, I'm using Cryo Slide here because it's one of my favorite abilities. So again, grabs them, they're all together. Make sure you actually hit the crit spot, and then you can see how they kind of all die together. In general, keeping in mind that you do have to use your aim down sights rather to get the extra crit, but with these smaller enemies, I know that I can just kill them off one shot, so I'm not really too worried about it. And then using Remnant to get the extra damage in. So again, this is where you have to be careful about using the build, scope up, and then boom, everything instantly dies within that time frame. And then here's where it gets a little bit more difficult, where you have the fire ones, so you need to make sure you get that extra shot, but you can see that we're scoping right through them.
I am
And this is, again, why I really do like Rerouter, because it does give us that extra bit of damage and viability that we might not have otherwise. And again, the overall damage boost we're going to be getting is very nice. Again, aim down sight, skip kill, and do a bunch of damage. And that's the best part about Remnant, getting that extra bit of damage for us. So again, bigger enemies. And go on to the next area. So with these Proving Ground runs, I am going to try to do as much as I can focusing on one weapon. Just for the sake of showcasing the build. So yes, again, Dueling Monocle does not get the bonus for when you are not scoped in. So we are doing just kind of our normal damage here. But thanks to Rerouter, or we just missed anyways, but thanks to Rerouter, we're getting that extra damage, which can help us just push through when needed. Yep, and this is one where now you can see where we have our fire weapon that's not doing too much for us, so we do need to switch over to a different weapon. Again, that doesn't make them completely immune to it, so as I was just saying, trying to make it as much as a one-gun run. Other times you are just kind of limited by what's available. Okay, that's another group. Dead. Again, grabs them all. Rerouter coming up. Takes a couple shots there because it's badass and we don't have a crit spot easily available to us, but overall working out pretty well. Yeah, maybe not the best run because we're getting all the fire ones, but this is also why I really love Proving Grounds as a testing metric, because you do have to be a little bit careful about what weapons you're using and how that's going to affect your time. So again, fire against shield's not going to be quite the best for us. Just trying to figure out where my other gun was. And I think we just missed the actual bit on there. And then again here using Unforgiven a little bit, you can see how the damage is going to be not as ideal without critting. That is a big part of this build. So especially with these enemies that are a little bit harder to crit, or their spots aren't always accessible, you might struggle a little bit. And again, I want to stress this is probably not going to be per se the best Proving Ground build. I do like a couple of the other ones for Amara a little bit more, but you can see that it's still going to be generally effective, and in that case Remnant was able to, you know, one-hit kill that thanks to the extra damage that we were pulling off from it. So Remnant goes a far way of carrying this build. And that's what I really like about Rerouter. You don't have to always worry about aiming down sights to get that extra damage. Sometimes your base can just get there for you. And again, here in some cases where it's just not going to be ideal. So this is what I was talking about in terms of Unforgiven being another nice choice for us. Because if this crit spot does become available to us, it's going to be a lot easier to hit with this instead. go, breaking through the first one. So the trend that you will see in this video is that, generally speaking, this is a much stronger mobbing build. For bosses, it is going to be a little bit weaker, and I do very strongly recommend using something like a Ludia or other gun in general to hopefully get that bit of damage that you want, because it's taking way too long at this point to get through it. Ludia, Cutsman, Crossroads even in this case would be a little bit better, because again, we're not really worried about getting critical hits in this case, and we're just relying on a weapon that does, you know, a considerable amount more damage. So you can already see that just by using the same exact build, slightly different weapon, it's going to do a lot more for us. So again, bit of a slower run in this case, didn't kill the Guardian itself, and then we have the chest here at the end. So that was our Proving Ground run with the Ties That Bind build. Again, a little bit slower than we like, but still you can see the cases where when you have Phase Grasp, it is going to be very strong and allow you to one-shot those mobs and clear them out of the way. Up next, we do have the Circle of Slaughter part of the video, so we're going to be using Shaft of Slaughter again and have neutral modifiers. I am starting this on round 2, just so it's a little bit further in. The enemies are a little bit harder, the pacing is a little bit different. Hopefully here you're going to be able to see how Unforgiven versus the Monocle are going to help out. So I'm going to wait for the enemies to drop down a little bit, let them get more positioned. I guess this will be our first kill here. And again, just instantly cutting enemies short. Here again, because it is closer, but I have the ability to have him right next to me, and that was a one-shot. I'll just go ahead and keep using this for a little bit. Then for the smaller guys, I do try to like using Unforgiven where it makes sense. The grouping isn't still ideal per se, right? You still have to do quite a bit of work for this to bring them together, but it is worth it once you can get a few more of them together to spread damage. And then Rerouter here is really going to help us out. And this is why I use it. Again, with this build, you're generally going to be far enough away from everybody that you don't have to worry about your shields being up. It's another case where that Stillness of Mind is really going to help us out. And there you can see that entire pack just got deleted. Again, don't forget, and I know I messed this up a little bit, or probably should have given it some more showtime in the Proving Ground run, but don't forget that Unforgiven is really decent on its own as well. So when it's down to just one enemy, they're in close range, you have that option to switch to your pistol. But again, I really wanted to show how amazing Dueling Monocle is and why this was really the breakthrough again for the video, or for the build. Of course, assuming that I can aim. Oof. Thankfully, we got the Phase Grasp there, so we still got the extra bit of CC on it. And this is where that handling and whatnot we were talking about really comes into play. Still takes a little while getting used to. I wish I had a better Unforgiven here. Just to focus on just a basic scope would be super helpful. Sometimes the iron sights aren't always the most forgiving thing in the world. Unfortunately, these hard asses can make it a little bit difficult to see. That's kind of one of the main things I hate. And this is where Slowness of Mind is really nice. You saw that even though he was getting damaged there by the other effects, he was able to stay up in the air, or with the grasp itself in that case. But for the other enemies that got hit by those grenades, it gives you a little bit longer on the CC duration, just so you don't have to worry about getting behind something right away. Gonna get knocked down here again, probably with the... No, clarity kept us up. Very nice. Unfortunately, he's gonna make a turret over there, which is kind of annoying for us. The one thing I will say that I don't like about this build compared to the other ones that we're going to be covering a little bit later in the week, but also if you guys are in the builds channel, you know it's my go-to one. Not having sustainment really hurts, and the reason why that's so important is because generally we can use our grenades as a way to lifesteal back to full and not have to worry about our health as much in this case. And of course that was not good for us to let him transform. So now it's going to be a little bit harder to deal with. So again, here, because we have body shots, I'm just going to switch to my One Pump. There we go. He's killing the one by us. Most important thing there. And I'm not seeing as many remnant orbs as I normally do, which is kind of weird. So I'm wondering if it's bugging out a little bit again, or what might be causing that. And again, the biggest bonus to this was really the range increase that we got to phase grasp. That's what's allowing us to, you know, get these guys come across the map, which then again is going to play into our sniper strategy. Ooh, that's not the one I meant to hit. So with that, there's of course a downside to all this in terms of not hitting the ones that you necessarily want to. Again, map awareness does take a little bit here, and that's it. That's a pretty good look at how the build does. To get knocked down there a couple times, again, this comes down to where you're going to be at in your skill tree if you want to take more clarity, right? So if you go back here to the green tree, really your only sustain here is going to be coming from this skill. So it is very important to make sure that you are keeping your grasp time up, so you are getting that life regeneration. And then if you wanted to, you know, soul sap, but then you don't get the stillness of mind benefit. So there's a little bit of a gap there in terms of which one you might want to be using. But that was a quick look into the Circle of Slaughter. Again, the shaft here being the best place to farm for loot. You can see 2 rounds, already have quite a few legendaries on the screen. If you haven't been farming this already, I definitely recommend it. But with that, it leaves 1 spot left to go, and we're going to go do Graveward now. All right, for our last part, we have Graveward. You can see unusual modifiers, and here we're going to try out a few different things just to see how it compares. So in this case, we have Dueling Monocle up first, which is always a little bit more difficult to, you know, get the headshots on here or the critical hits. So you can see not a ton of damage, nothing too impressive. We can switch to Unforgiven. Still falls pretty flat. So that was before the fall. What I'm gonna do here is reset it really quick and then switch to something like Cutsman, which you guys will see will do considerably more damage. Now again, if you do have a phase cast weapon, which has a 250+% damage anointment, definitely give that a spin. It's gonna be doing a lot more for you. So again, same modifiers, same everything. We're gonna go in here. And don't forget, you're gonna wanna aim right between his 2 crit spots like that. And it looks like I missed on the first one, but you can already see here, and I'm gonna get knocked off the edge, but a ton of more damage comparatively. So it does still come down to kind of what's available to you, what guns are an option. Things like Ludia are still gonna be very strong, but that is going to be the better way to get Graveward down. So any Amara build really is gonna wanna focus on Ludia and things of that nature. So with that, what are the final thoughts on the build? So Ties That Bind continues to be one of the best mobbing builds available for Amara, or at least just very strong at it. That said, it does fall short, just as like the melee build does in terms of bossing. So all around, it may not be as good as, say, the phase cast Mara, Goku Mara, ABC Mara, whatever your name we're using for it these days. But I did really love this build in terms of what it can do in Circle of Slaughter, since really that is the only thing currently worth farming in the game. So if you're looking for a new fun Circle of Slaughter build, I would absolutely recommend this. Again, overall, this is probably going to be your best fresh level 50 Amara build, and that's probably the best thing that this has going for it. The other builds do require a bit more gear, so if you just hit level 50 and you haven't started the grinding train of looking for gear and whatnot, then this is probably going to be the best build available to you. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Yes, it is a little bit longer, but I did want to make sure I covered all the various aspects about it. And if you have any thoughts about other builds you want to see or other ways to improve this video, please make sure to let me know and leave a comment down below. With that, I'll see you guys next time in the Sage of Sanctuary. See ya.